What's your lifestyle, right? Like everybody's different. Like, everybody has a different goal and ambition. And I feel like as long as you have a purpose and reason behind what you're doing, it's not a sacrifice. It's just you're different. Welcome back to the Student Founder Podcast, a platform that I myself, among others, have created to, allow for experts in business, student founders, and entrepreneurs to come on and talk about their experiences, both good and bad. I'm your host, Oliver Cucanic, PhD student by day, student entrepreneur by night. Now, today, we have a very special guest, the magnum opus of early student founders. Today's guest is the CEO and co-founder of Steppen, the #1 fitness creator app designed to help fitness creators build and showcase and monetize their online community. With over 500 downloads globally, 290 plus reviews, and a 4.6 star rating on the App Store, raising over $500,000 in crowdfunding. Introducing to you, Cara Davies. How are you, Cara?
I'm good. I'm embarrassed by that introduction.
Why is that?
You made me sound way better than I actually am, but thank you.
Don't feel like that. I'm sure you've got a profound network and definitely a lot of experience. So you're more experienced than any of us here.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me on the podcast.
That's all right. So we'll just start the podcast really easy. Just tell us a bit about yourself, right? So
what do you want to know?
I guess being the Student Founder Podcast in itself, right? We like to bring people who went from academia and then balanced facilitating their interest in business to eventually starting their own companies, right? So you yourself, as I introduced, have started a great company, you know what I mean? That's gained a lot of traction over the past year. And just your mindset of getting into business as an industry, but then also your philosophy of how you balance your time and such things, right?
Yeah.
So I guess, we can start anywhere you like.
Sure. So I guess always the best place to start is the beginning.
Yeah, the beginning. Let's talk about your academic career for example.
No, okay. So I was going to brush over that. So I'm studying software engineering and psychology. So I'm doing a double degree at Monash of engineering and science. Mm-hmm. So I'm technically still enrolled. I've just actually extended my intermission. Yeah. So I was very much in school, in high school, very studious, always head in the books, took school super, super seriously. Yeah. Then I got to university and same thing, very much chasing good grades, solid, out of university extracurricular. And what I found was I could see very clearly this pathway for me, which was I was going to probably end up in a great corporate job, probably management consulting or maybe research at one of the big tech firms. I was really interested in kind of the intersection of computer science and psychology. And I just started thinking at the back of my head, is that really what I want to do? Do I really want to be working for a big corporation, long hours, doing really cool things, but is that what I really want to do? And at the same time, I was facing this problem every time I went to the gym that I had no idea what I was doing. So I'd literally walk in and I'd be like, oh my God, what am I meant to do? Just feeling overwhelmed and stressed.
So are you a big fitness freak?
So I played a lot of basketball growing up. So I used to play basketball 8 times a week. But then once I finished school, I started,
Just not even 7 days in a week. You're playing 8 times, multiple times a day.
Not playing. I had training games, whatever.
So you were trying to be a competitive athlete at the time.
Yeah, I played a lot. Even during year 12, I think I was training 6-7 times a week still. Sure. So once I finished school, I kind of stopped playing as much and started going to the gym. And I really liked going to the gym, but I just had no idea what I was doing. And I would always walk in and feel completely lost and confused. And I kind of looked around at what was available out there. And I realized there wasn't really anything that was built for someone my age or in my financial position. I don't know about you, but uni students tend to be pretty broke.
Of course.
So I had a few free PT sessions and I really enjoyed them, but they were going to be $70 for half an hour session, which was just infeasible. Wasn't going to work for me. So what I started to look at was like, cool, are there any apps around that will kind of support me and provide me with guidance of what to do? And when I looked at what was out there, a lot of them were just cookie cutter apps. Like it was like Liam Hemsworth, Chris Hemsworth, Centre.
Shout out Centre.
Yeah, Chris Hemsworth, like this is what he does.
Yeah,
but
$700.
Yeah, but that might not be like what I want to do. That's not super curated to me.
Yeah.
And what I found was there was a bunch of content creators on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, like a lot of fitness creators, but when you went onto these platforms, they're not fitness platforms. So when you actually try and complete a workout on TikTok, I don't know if you've ever done that before, it's a bit of a shit show for lack of better words. Like, you have the music playing on loop. You can sometimes pause the videos, you sometimes can't. Like, you can't rewind. You have to take screenshots.
Yeah, it's not an optimized.
It's not an optimized experience, right? It's not built for that. But a lot of people our age were kind of using it in that way. So I started to kind of talk to other people in my circle, other uni students, high school students, understand like what are they doing when they go to gym or what are they doing when they work out. And I realized no one really had a good solution. And when we kind of surveyed people, the most used app when people were working out was just Spotify, like it's a music app. Then it was like your phone timer, and then it was YouTube and TikTok. Like it wasn't, none of these are fitness apps. So I realized there was a bit of a gap in the market for our age demographic, and specifically for people that were looking for guidance and like wanted a content creator that they could follow. So that's kind of how Steppen evolved. And really, like, whenever people ask me, oh, how did it start? It just kind of snowballed from there because, you know, you have an idea, and I think that often you have crazy ideas and you're like, cool, that's a crazy idea. I just happen to keep working and like taking it to the next step.
Sure. Yeah, because it sounds like when you curated the idea in itself, its inception came from you being someone who was you were looking for something to actually use. Yeah. So you were looking for something that you couldn't find, and you ended up building something to fulfill that, right? But then it looks like you've taken also advantage of the opportunity from the creator side, right? Of actually developing a system where you're not only providing to consumers, but actually being able to monetize yourself as a creator on the platform.
For sure. And the ideas definitely evolved. When we started off, we were very much like a social fitness app that you could just follow your friends and stuff. And what we realized is people don't really care about what their friends are doing in the gym or what workouts they're doing. Like some people do if they're big gym rats, but the average Joe Schmo, like beginner person, which is most of us, they don't care. It's really intimidating working out. It's scary. What they actually care about is someone that knows what they're doing, telling them what to do so they don't have to think about it. So that's kind of how we evolved more and more onto the creator side, and now we're very much a creator economy player that we're trying to help content creators in the fitness space really monetize their existing community through our platform. So
No, that's very interesting. So just touching on you kind of brushed over it really fast, but your academic background, right? So you said you did a double degree, or you're completing a double degree in psychology and computer science. So do you think this is a very just basic question, but that your degree or experience in psychology has helped evolve the platform at all?
It's an interesting question because I still need to figure out if I do want to go back to uni or not. I think definitely every experience you have shapes you in some way. And I think definitely the psych background is helpful in terms of thinking about how people interact with things, thinking about interpersonal skills. I've always found that super interesting. So 100%. I think though, in terms of my computer science degree, I was really early. So I was doing software engineering. I was really early into that, and I'd only done literally 3 subjects. So the actual benefit of those subjects would have been if I finished the degree and I was coding it myself. But I think it's been very much, when you're learning things, it's not necessarily about what you're learning always. It's about the frameworks that it teaches you to apply to problem solving. So if you look at kind of psychology and computer science, they're quite different, and they come at things very differently. So I think they've both taught me good ways of problem solving, which are applicable in different situations. So psych more probably interpersonal than software engineering is very much breaking things down into systems and then breaking those systems into problems, sub-problems, and tackling each thing and working up. Absolutely. So I think that's definitely been helpful, high level in terms.
Definitely. The reason I ask is because I guess there would be a good correlation between understanding human psychology and then from a developer standpoint, understanding what the consumer wants.
Yeah, it's a very good, it's a great combination.
Yeah.
Like if
in
I ever
theory.
finish it, it's a really good degree, really good double degree, because it is such different skills, and both are in such high demand, and often, unfortunately, I guess people are either good at like more humanities, well, psych is still science, but like those types of things, and like or software engineering. People don't tend to really like to do both. But I guess I was super lucky that I did have interest in both sides.
That's good. All right, so I guess, you know, once you started this like application, like, you know, you were looking to find a platform that suited you, and you ended up creating it, right? Did you do this while you were working? Like, how did you balance your time?
Yeah. So initially when I came up with the concept of Steppen, it was actually like November, so we were about to go into exams for uni.
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
Under the pump.
So I was just finishing off an internship at uni with my professor in psychology for cognitive development. So I was doing an internship there at the time. And then I was just studying, and then over summer I did do an internship like full-time at Afterpay over the summer of 2021. So like not this summer, the previous summer. And that was pretty full-on, kind of balancing full-time work and then trying to do Steppen at the same time. And at that point I was just a solo founder. I'm really lucky now that I have two awesome co-founders in Jake and Dave, but at that time I was sole founder. And that was pretty hectic, like working my first full-time job and then doing more work on top of that.
So you basically went back to back. You got a full-time job.
I was doing an internship. It was like 5 weeks.
So internship. So you're working full-time, and then you're like, oh, you know, I want to start a company.
No, it was, I already had the idea before, and then I was doing the internship, and I was not going to not do the internship because it was incredible. But I just had to kind of work on it outside of my internship.
Interesting. So do you think there were any inherent sacrifices that were required, you know, during your, let's say, working life that allowed you to then progress your company?
Yeah, I think that it's interesting. It's been something I guess that's coming up a bit, is like definitely being a founder isn't for everyone, and it's definitely a very different lifestyle to most 22-year-olds. When I was 22 when I started the company. No, I was 21 when I started the company. 22-year-olds, 23-year-olds. Like, I am now 23. All my friends right now are on exchange in Europe. Like,
they're all enjoying their life.
They're all traveling, enjoying their life. I'm here working.
It's all delayed gratification.
Yeah, and that's not I don't necessarily see that as a sacrifice or anything. That's just what my life is. It's just very different. But sometimes that can be difficult. When like a lot of my friends are at uni and I'm working full time, like our lives are very different. So I think that inevitably, like, there have been a lot of sacrifices, inverted commas, that I've made in terms of just like social life, time, like stress, like all those types of things. But they're not like, I don't see them as sacrifices. They're
What's your lifestyle, right? Like, everybody's different. Like, everybody has a different goal and ambition, and I feel like as long as you have a purpose and reason behind what you're doing, it's not a sacrifice. It's just you're different.
It's just like part of the job, honestly. And I think if you really want something, that you can't do it. Like, you can't do everything. Like, in general,
we all want to be a generalist, but
you know, you can't do everything. So especially with the startup, that takes up a lot of your time, your emotional energy, like energy in general, like mental energy, everything. And it does mean that you can't do everything. Like, I can't go out partying on Thursday night, like, and staying up till 4 and then rocking up to work the next day. Like, not that I would want to do that.
Yeah, but it's a part of the mentality and discipline, right?
So it's just a different lifestyle to most people our age, which isn't a bad or good thing. It just is what it is.
Do you think you were always driven like that?
Yeah, I think I was always wired a bit different. I'm sure people that know me growing up, like, as I said, I was very studious, head in the books. Like, I always feel like I've been very driven. And
so is it like obsession?
No.
Do you think people ever saw you as obsessed?
No, I don't. I'd like to think not, but potentially. I think definitely it takes a very particular type of person to be a founder, and you definitely have to be a bit strange, and I will embrace that. I am definitely a bit strange in a bunch of ways. So I think definitely,
No, it's good. That's fantastic. So I guess like we'll move on then, like stop talking about that, but get too deep and then we get sad. But
I don't think sad, just like they might just be unexpected. It might be unexpected to have this philosophical debate in a startup.
No, it's all right. It's all just loose, right? So don't stress. But anyway, so I guess like the process of turning an idea into a product is where we'll get at now, right? So I guess when you came up with the idea, you had an intention, but like you said, it adapted over time, right? So let's talk a little bit about how, the idea actually came into fruition. What was your first steps into implementing the company that you've now created?
Yeah, so everyone always like, when was your aha moment? I unfortunately don't have an aha moment. It was just something that
just
like,
a perpetual grind.
The idea was just kind of sitting at the back of my mind for a while, just something niggling at me. It wasn't just like at a light bulb moment in the shower type of situation. So the first thing that I did was I tried to speak to as many people as possible to validate that there was a problem, which was that for our age demographic, people didn't have an existing fitness app that they used and they had no idea what they were doing when working out. So I tried to speak to as many people as possible and ask them a bunch of questions about how they're working out, what they're using, etc. So that was kind of the first thing that I did. Then there was, of course, a bunch of market research, understanding what are the other fitness apps out there, how they're positioning themselves, etc. And then I was really lucky that I was connected with one of my mentors, Simon Rake Allen, who was an ex-CTO at MYOB. Okay. So he's been in the tech space, the startup space, and basically the first week that I had the idea of Steppen verbalized to people, I was connected with him and I called him up, this random guy I don't know. It's like a friend of a friend, it's like a family friend of family friend's friend.
So he's in your network,
He's like in my network. A few people removed, but he's around, I guess.
Like a third on LinkedIn.
Yeah, exactly. Literally exactly that. And I called him up and I kind of explained to him, I'm like, hey, my name is Cara, blah, blah, blah. This is my idea. Like, I hear that you're like the startup guy. Like, what do you recommend I do? What do you think of the idea? Like, what should my next steps be?
So it was just that broad. Like, he didn't know who you were. He didn't know you were going to call.
Yeah, I think he might have known I was going to call, but he didn't know who I was.
He didn't know what you were about.
He didn't really know me. He didn't know me. And he was so helpful, and I'm really grateful for Simon. He like really taught me at the start everything I know about startups. A lot of the methodology about how you approach startups, like there is a science to the madness, which is basically you want to try and validate the problem as quickly as possible with as little resources as possible, and then just keep building your solution up and up and up and up and up. So it's more and more complex in time. But like the first thing is you want to make sure there's an actual problem there. So Simon was really helpful, and I basically got off the phone with him and he's like, cool, when I speak to you, like call me back this time next week and I want you to have spoken to 20 people. I was like, oh my God, when am I going to speak to 20 people? I'm like about to start exams. I need to start nearly studying for exams. Like,
so how'd you go about that?
I just like hit up everyone I knew kind of.
You're just like, oh, I'm just going to go
you have to be a bit,
go through the friends
have
list
a bit, have a bit like,
hey, how's it going? I haven't spoken to you for years.
Yeah, you have to have no embarrassment kind of to an extent. Definitely. So I just kind of chatted to a bunch of people and understood their problems, and then basically from there I just kept iterating, validating it a bit more, understanding a bit more what the problem was, getting in my head a better idea of what I would want to build. And then it just kind of got to the stage it's like, cool, we can either do something about this idea or we can just like forget it and move on and just like be a what if type of situation. And I was like, you know what, like
just go for it.
I should just go for it. I don't have anything to lose. I'm gonna learn so much. Like,
were you scared?
No, I wasn't scared. I actually wasn't, because I don't think it was something that was like idea next day. It wasn't like idea next day, I'm gonna drop out of uni, I'm gonna do this, do that. Like it was a gradual thing. It was a gradual thing, right? And I really believed in it. Like you need to really believe. Like I thought, and still to an extent do, think that like we're building the next Facebook equivalent type thing, but in fitness, like it's gonna be this huge company. Everyone's gonna be using it, millions of people every day.
So blue skies,
you know, that's what you need to think. Like, and it's crazy, but you need to if you're gonna do all of this. So I got to that stage and I said, you know what, I want to build this. So then I started looking for development agencies to build initial MVP. I found one in Brisbane, and then initially put some money in myself and my family to build that initial MVP, and then it kind of just went from there. We got the initial MVP built at the same time. I was lucky to get my co-founder Jake involved. So Jake and I went to school together.
Because I was going to ask about that, because I guess, you know, having an idea is one thing, and then going through the vicissitudes of, you know, reaching out to someone to give, they'll give you their time, you know what I mean? That's a good lesson to the audience, is like, people will give more
than you think,
expect,
100%.
You know what I mean? You just have to have the courage and fortitude to actually 100%. Go and ask, right? But having said that, you know, running your own startup and, you know, going from the get-go, it's not an easy task to do, especially if you're alone in the process. Right. So in terms of your co-founders, right, how did you go about meeting them, and how important do you think a good co-founder is?
The good co-founder is everything. I don't think I could have done this by myself. Like, this wasn't me doing it by myself. It's a team. Definitely my co-founding team of Jake and Dave have been incredible. So for context, like, as you said, it's a lot to do yourself. I think it was like the middle of my internship at Afterpay, and there was like a day off for some reason, and I just launched our Instagram. And like, you know how it is, you just like shamelessly post about the Steppen Insta on your personal Insta. So a few people that I know kind of saw it, started following it. And one of the people that saw it was Jake. And Jake and I went to school together. We were in the same kinder class. And he just messaged me on WhatsApp and was just like, hey, like, I saw this thing Steppen. What is it? Like, I'd love to hear more. And initially I was just like, what does he want? This is so random. Like, we knew each other in school, but we weren't super friendly. As I always like to say, it was definitely a relationship of mutual respect, but like, we weren't really mates or anything outside of school.
But I feel like that's how a lot of like good relationships build up.
Yeah, like, it's good. We have a really good work.
You always had that mutual respect, and then it's like, you always respected each other's grind, and then one day it
actually
exactly. It all made sense,
right? So, it was exactly like that. So it was kind of the middle of COVID, so we caught up for a few walking meetings. And I just legally, of course, it was legal. It was like when it was like quasi lockdown. And I was just explaining to him what I was doing and what I was thinking, and by the end of our first walk, he was like, I really want to get involved, like, how can I get involved? And then I was lucky enough, I was lucky enough that he ended up joining as a co-founder. And Jake really is like, does all of our marketing, all of our compliance. So then it was Jake and myself, and then we were really lucky that Simon, actually the guy I mentioned at the start, introed us a couple months later to Dave, who's our CTO. So Jake and I, like, Jake's 22, I'm 23. Dave, our CTO, is 40. He has 2 kids.
So a bit more senior.
So he's more senior. He's been around the tech space for ages.
You need that in a company.
And it was like good to have that combination.
And the contacts. He would have over the last 20 years himself developed his own network,
he knows a few people for sure. And he's just like a gun. So so it ended up being us 3, and it's been really amazing. I think, like, as I said before, I couldn't do this without both of them. Like, we all bring different things to the table. We all approach problems differently. We all have different areas that we focus on. Different areas of expertise. And it means, like, I don't have to, well, I do, because, like, I should, but like, I don't need to constantly be worried about like marketing or like that the tech's not going to work or whatever, because I trust Jake and I trust Dave, and I know that they've got it covered. It's really good.
Technical,
nuanced,
and you can worry about the other things.
And it's hard. Like, startups are hard. It's as I've said, it's a roller coaster. It's emotionally like up and down all the time, and it's really good to have other people on the ride that understand that with you. So I think 100% like would recommend to anyone that's listening that wants to start a startup to find a co-founder, co-founders, and like, it really makes a huge difference.
Definitely. That's really good. Great. So I guess, like, talking now about your MVP that you invested in, you developed just, you know, with a development agency, right? How did that go? So once you developed your MVP, like, was it where you wanted it to be? And how did you go about iterating and making it better?
So I think when we were building it, we thought it was like amazing, and it was like straight away gonna be like,
so the user interface was
we thought,
good,
but then once we started doing user testing at the very end, we're like, oh my god, this is so shit.
So what was the biggest problem?
it just like we didn't do enough testing with users before. We just kind of built what we thought would work. We didn't really show it. We showed it to people, but it's never the same until you get it in people's hands and actually see how they're using it.
Sure.
So we built like a really crappy initial version, which is perfect. That's what you want. You want to get something out as quickly as possible so you can get real feedback. So from there we realized like there was a bunch of stuff that we didn't account for, didn't know. And I think early on, like our problem was that we didn't have a very clear idea of exactly who we were building for or what we were trying to achieve. And that's something that is always a struggle in startups because things change so quickly. But right now I think that's something that we're really clear on exactly who we're building for, like the personas and what our goals are. So basically, honestly, and like there was a lot of muddling around thinking we're doing this, doing that. And now I think we have a really strong understanding of who we're building for, why, what we need to do as a result, and trying to make sure we're chatting to those creators frequently. And that's something we can always do better.
Nice. So you said earlier, just correct me if I'm wrong, but you bootstrapped your way in the beginning. So you actually were investing capital. Did you
so
hard-earned cash?
So initially I think it ended up being about 30k that in total that.
And that was between the founders or just you?
Just between myself and my family, because initially it was just me that we put in. So
you're quite bullish on the idea.
So that cash was never going to get us too far.
Of course.
But
it's what it takes.
It's what it takes. You need to put some money on the line, some time on the line, and like that was what it took to get us to a stage that we could then talk to investors and try and get them to invest in us.
This is an interesting part of the conversation.
And that's when we did our pre-seed round. So
you've got some good experience. And
so that's when we did our pre-seed round. So we ended up raising a bunch of money for our pre-seed. It ended up being about 650k that we ended up raising.
Wow. So what was the process? Like, what was the setup the point which you had to get to in order to go through pre-seeding, right?
There's no point, like there's no one point. I think it depends on a lot of things. And it depends on a lot of things, like who you've been talking to, market conditions, honestly, like how good you are explaining out what you're doing, what type of business you're building. So I think the earlier you can speak to potential investors, the better, because it's not about seeing like one dot. It's about, what's the saying? It's like they want to see like your journey. It's not just like one single point and they're gonna be like, cool, I'm gonna invest in this random person that I just met today. They want to see progress. So I think the earlier you can start those conversations, the better. And with our pre-seed in particular, we were really lucky that we'd been speaking to quite a reputable family office quite early. Jagan, their name is, and they'd seen kind of our growth or the journey, and really believed in us, and they kind of suggested that we look to raise money in a certain way. And with that, they invested straight away, which meant that when we went to other investors, say we're raising this much, we're doing this.
So what did you, in that process, let's just break this down for a second. When you actually raise the capital, right, and you go to the investments, individuals who are actually delineating the cash, are you presenting them a pitch? Are you presenting them quantifiable
it just depends.
Results?
It depends where you are as a business. I think there's such a mystery around how to raise capital, and it really depends on like so many factors. Like the first thing is where you are as a company. As I said, like we were really early. I don't even think at this stage we had a product in market, so people honestly were investing in us, which is really, really crazy. And you try not to think about that too much, because like they're investing in you as a person.
They're investing in the technician, right?
And so really early on, that is what people are investing in, because like shit changes so often. Like the initial idea you might have might end up changing, like whatever. So they're really backing you. It really depends on the stage. Like later when we raise capital, again, it's a different story because there's business things to base it on. And then like,
so how many rounds of funding did you like?
So we've done our pre-seed rounds, and then we've recently closed a seed round.
Interesting. So I read in an article, I'm not sure if this is true or not, but you have connections with the co-founder of Afterpay. Is that
yes,
correct?
yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that, because that's a notorious name, right?
Yeah.
His name, what is it? Anthony Eisen.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Or is it Eisen?
Eisen, yeah.
Eisen, yeah. So how did you even get in touch with someone like that?
Yeah, so I was really lucky that I had a super warm intro to Ant, so like kind of know him. Yeah, so I did the internship at Afterpay, and then at the end, like I know Ant personally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We kind of caught up at the end, and I was just thanking him for the time, and he wanted to hear how it was. And I remember talking to Jake before, and he was like, you have to pitch him.
You have to do it.
You have to do
like
it.
You don't want to do it, but you have
and
to
I was
do
like,
it.
yeah, I know, I have to, because like
it's the opportunity.
it's such a good opportunity. So ended up also pitching him Steppen, and it was.
So what did you do? You just took him to coffee, or like?
Yeah, we had a coffee. And then I was talking to him also about Steppen.
Yeah.
And I remember being really, 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 really nervous.
Of course.
And like I had a demo and it just like wasn't working because the Wi-Fi in the cafe just didn't work, and I was just like, but it ended up being fine because he ended up investing, which is really, really cool.
But again, he's investing in you.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
He knows you have a personal relationship with him.
Like
right? So
at the end of the day.
Like at the end of the day, like people forget, right? Like
Yeah.
your idea, like if you got your
Like
idea.
anyone can have a great idea. Like everyone has great ideas. Like every day, people have great ideas. Like I think also like early on, you're like, oh, people are gonna steal my idea. Like it's so hard to steal someone's idea. Like the amount of effort that they have to go through.
Absolutely. Like there's a typical example. I was reading this. What was the book called? I think it was called Deep Work.
Yeah, great book.
They were talking about the idea of Uber. And like having an application that replaced taxi services. And they said in the book, if you think that the person who founded Uber was the first person who came up with that idea,
no,
you should laugh at yourself, because it's absolutely not the case, right? Because an idea is an idea is nothing, right? Until you actually proceed and actually do something with the idea. 99.95% of people will come up with a good idea and they'll never pursue it.
Yeah.
Right? So in fact, I'd say that if you come up with an idea, even if it's been done or people are talking about it, that's validation.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? So that means that you're onto something potentially, right? Because you got to remember, even if there's competitors in the market, there might still be room for you in that market.
100%.
So you've got Uber, but then you've got Diddy, and you've got all these other, abstract different companies that have delineated themselves and distinguished themselves from the major competition, right? And they've all been successful, and they're all running successful companies. So I think that's a very interesting philosophy, interesting to understand. So in terms of actually like after this conversation you had with Anthony, like what was his reaction when like, because you said you were nervous and then you were like, oh, it went horrible, but when we like
I don't think at the time I thought it went horrible. I just remember
reflecting
being really
on
nervous.
it
I think the thing that is exciting for people is when you're talking big and like I really
So were you throwing numbers at him and everything?
No,
as well?
it was just like, this is going to change the fitness industry, which it will. So I think that was what excited him. And I think just like the passion was really exciting. And I think that definitely for our first round was like what excited people was like, we were so passionate. We really believe that this is going to change the world, change the fitness landscape, etc. And like that works for the first round. Like it's not going to work when you're like on the stock market and your company's not performing. But like early on that really did work. And also like as we've discussed, like they just really believed in us, which is crazy, but that's like also really what it was.
So I have a question. It's a bit more of a personal business question. With all this capital that you've raised, what does a lot of the expenses go towards?
Wages. So a lot of it's wages. Like
so how many staff do you have at the moment?
So at the moment there's 10 of us, I think, on wages. So most, like literally all of our burn is just salaries. Like the first year that we were running the company, Jake, Dave and I all didn't take a salary. So like that's like, I guess, another sacrifice. Like you just need to do whatever you can to get the company to survive, especially early days. Like so most of most towards wages.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so Steppen as an application has done quite well for itself, right? It's got a lot of users at the moment, and they go broadly across the globe. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So where is your major, I guess, use case for the
Like
actual
where
application?
most of
Yeah,
our
like
users-
where is most of your customers based?
Yeah, so the app's been downloaded now over 300,000 times. We
Wow.
are shifting like our focus a bit, so it's going to be more creator focused, in the sense that the creators will be bringing on the members rather than us going out and marketing and acquiring all these members. But most of the users are in the US, which is like good. That's the market that you want to be in.
Yeah. So you've got creators on the platform from the US, but then also consumers.
Yeah, most of our creators they're a bit everywhere, to be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've got both.
Yeah, that's interesting. And what's it like in terms of the actual, the benefit for the creator themselves? Is it a good deal?
Why do you think I'm gonna be like, no, it's a bad deal?
I'm not saying that, but like I'm just thinking like, in terms of like,
yeah, so the value proposition for
so like basically, yeah, like why would someone use your app instead of just going and running their own thing?
Yeah, so the value proposition for creators is very much like Steppen is for emerging fitness creators, specifically creators that have an existing following, an existing community, and that community could be like 5 people, it could be 2,000 people, it could be 200,000 people, but they're not monetizing that community yet. There's definitely right now there is my mind is blanking, there is like the ability to potentially, but they don't have the tools to do that yet.
Of course. So you're providing them the conduit required to take advantage of what
we're
they
empowering
have.
them with tools that they can now start monetizing their existing community and then manage their existing community through our platform. So that's really what we're doing.
Sure.
What is analogy that we use? It's a bit PG, but like it's like OnlyFans for fitness. It's kind of the concept,
it's a good example. Because
so it's like the same thing. Like on OnlyFans, creators will like have existing communities that they're funneling into their OnlyFans.
Absolutely.
Same type of thing, except that Steppen is very fitness specific. So it's same type of analogy. And
I think the application itself, especially from the creator side, is fantastic because it's giving them the opportunity to manage their own job as well.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So they don't have like a manager being like, oh, you have to do this, or like some type of I guess boss who's telling them what to do. Right. They're just doing whatever they feel comfortable with as the creator, and it's unique. So I would assume if I went on the app, which I haven't actually done yet, that every content creator would be very distinct and different from one another.
They'll all be doing what they want to post, and like the rise of the creator economy is like right now the internet allows you to connect with like people everywhere and has really good technology. More and more like people's full-time job is creating content, and we're specifically focusing on people that's full-time job. They want their full-time job to be creating fitness content and helping them monetize. So that's really where we come in.
That's good. So in terms of gaining traction globally, how much did you put into marketing? Was there a lot of emphasis in that, or did it kind of just gain natural traction with the use of influencers?
So we were really successful on TikTok in terms of our marketing. That's really how we got most of our downloads. Jake did an amazing job there. And
so the power of TikTok marketing.
Pardon?
The power of TikTok marketing.
Like most of our downloads were through TikTok marketing. He did an outstanding job, and some of our ads were like among the best performing ads in Australia, basically. So that was super successful. But now we're focusing more and more on organic growth, so ways that we can get users without paying directly for them. So it definitely was a big part of what we were doing, but our business has evolved a lot to be not just growth, but sustainable growth. So making sure that we're bringing on users that are going to be hopefully paying, long-term users, and engaged users. So that is definitely shifting.
That's good. Yeah, I feel like there's definitely a benefit of having a platform that influencers and things like that use, because they themselves are promoting the platform passively.
Exactly.
Because they have audiences and they would have contacts of people who are, it's like almost how OnlyFans grew, right? People were like, oh, I'm earning money doing this. And they're like, I want to get a part of that. So then they joined in, and then it grew. So that's really good. One other thing that I read about Steppen was I guess there was an intention at some point to get, sponsorships and partnerships with larger brands. Is that correct? So I think I was reading in an article that you were trying to get a partnership with Nike.
No, I don't know where you're reading that.
No, that's all right. No worries. I mean, I just brought it up.
If Nike's listening and they want to do a partnership with us, they're welcome to.
There you go, Nike, if you're listening, there you go.
I don't know where that was.
That's all right.
That's funny.
But is that ever an intention that you want to get like proper, sports?
Yeah, so we're definitely working actually with brands at the moment. We do have partnerships. I'm not sure. I don't really know. So we have a partnership upcoming with LSKD. That they're like an apparel brand, which is cool. And it'll basically give members of the Steppen app a discount code if they do a certain amount of workouts, so they can buy stuff from LSKD for a discount. And there's a bunch of things that we can do with partnerships.
Yeah, interesting. And then one last thing was just like, what's the future for the company? How big do you want to get it? It's a broad question.
Yeah, so really the vision for Steppen is we want to empower all fitness and health content creators to make a living doing what they love, creating content and helping people live healthier lives. So we really want to be the ecosystem that anyone goes onto when they're looking for like fitness content, meditation content, long-term nutrition content, that like just say you like, oh, I need a meal plan. You eventually go onto Steppen and you find the perfect creator that is going to create the best meal plan for you. So really we want to be something that for our creators, they're using every day to power their business. And then for users, millions of people using the platform every single day to live healthier lives. Like it's really that simple at the end of the day.
That's great. All right, well, I guess we'll wrap it up then. But before we go, one last piece of advice that you'd like to give to the student founding community, people who are interested in running their own startups. What piece of advice would you give someone who's in the beginning stages of running a startup?
Yeah, so we just mentioned Nike. Again, if you're listening, guys, just hit me up. But like they're saying is just do it. And I think that's really what, like, you just do it. Like if you have an idea and it's been in your head for a while, just go for it. Like,
just go for it and see the result.
Yeah, like you're gonna, like no matter what happens, like it's gonna be an incredible experience. You'll learn so much. You'll be able to achieve a lot. And you can't learn everything at uni, guys. So make sure to like give it a crack. So yes, just do it.
There you go. You've heard it from Cara Davies herself. Just do it. All right, that's been Cara Davies from Steppen. Make sure to download the app on iOS and
it's just on iOS, unfortunately.
Okay,
sorry,
iOS
Android
at the moment.
friends.
Is it going to come out on Google Play Store?
So the creator app, if they're a content creator, they can get it on Google. But unfortunately, the normal member app is not available on the Play Store.
No worries. Well, iOS, most people have an iPhone anyway because Samsung's a bit insecure. But no worries there.
Agreed.
Even though I have a Samsung myself. Anyway, we'll wrap up the episode there. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast, Cara. I really appreciate it, and I had a great time, and I hope the audience has also had a great time.
I had a great time.
And learning from the experiences of someone who was a student and is now a successful student founder.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
All good. It's been Oliver of the Student Founder podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe and check out the episodes that we have available on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, etc. With that being said, stay grindy. Take care, everyone. Thanks so much for listening to that episode of the Student Founder podcast with our interviewee, Cara Davies. Hopefully you learned a lot about the experiences of what it's like running and getting your startup off the ground. I'd like to shout out and thank Rofi Labs for supporting this episode of the podcast. Rofi Labs can help you bring your software solutions to life today. If you're interested in learning more about this and how we can help you, feel free to visit our website at www.rofilabs.com.au or check me out on LinkedIn at Oliver Cucanic.